All right, well, welcome everyone to the second budget workshop for FY 2013 and 14. This workshop is the second of three scheduled workshops in development of the 2013-14 budget. This workshop is intended to provide the board with an overview of the general fund operating budgets. What we're going to do is we're going to I'm going to hit a couple of highlights on your what we went through, but we provided you with a balanced budget. The actual budget, when we turn it over to the commissioners, will be on July 15th, but as of right now, we have a balanced budget. We're ahead of where we were last year. We put much time and effort into this budget. We've made a lot of adjustments. We had a lot of hits that unmandated unfunded mandates, and we've had a lot of discussion with our constitutionals as well. So we feel like we've trimmed. One of the things that this budget does not do, it does not address employee raises. There's minimal raises in to bring some of our lower paid employees, bring them up to a living wage, but other than that, there's no employee wage adjustments in this budget, and that was primarily due to the FRS, the state reinitiating full FRS rates this year. They had backed off of them, and they initiated those full FRS rates, which hit us at a pretty good clip. In fact, just the U5 there cost us $35,000 more. We had to increase the budget just from U5 sitting right there, to give you an idea across the board what the effect was.
35,000.
35,000. So, and that was the effect that we felt all over. We feel like we've done a very good job. We've got, I'm gonna hit a couple of the high points here, and then we've got Greg will start working through a fund by fund or through the general fund.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
And I just don't see David, but like, you know, I work for the state and I work for here. And they told me after, you know, I got elected, they said that I had to choose one or the other. So I chose to keep going retirement-wise with my state. And then they sent that here, and I was just wanting them, did y'all factor that in?
We'll look into that and see.
Okay.
We've got to use the next month when we turn it over to, we've still got a lot of verifying.
Because I didn't want you to factor in that I was getting paid something that I wasn't.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because we've got a couple other employees that are like that, that we've already taken out, but we'll have to make a note of that. But like I say, it's not the final budget. We feel pretty good of where we're at, but we want your input. This is just, you know, your meeting to ask us questions, and what we're going to do is just give you a couple of brief highlights. Greg will start going through a couple of things on the funds, and we can dive into as much detail as you guys want to, or as little detail as you want to. So, and like I say, we've got another month to continue to refine the budget, and then we'll turn it over to you guys, and then we have another month or 2 months to continue to refine that budget. So, general fund summaries, just to give you a summary and highlights. Ad valorem, we're factoring in a 4.57% decrease, and with our in the property values and our millage rate, this budget assumes keeping the millage rate at 8.5 and not using the roll-up rate.
Which page are you on, if you don't mind?
I'm on the agenda item right now. I'm just hitting a couple of high points here, which that is that's our largest single revenue of the general fund, which equates to a decrease in ad valorem revenue of $312,499. Our local utility taxes, we anticipate a 7% increase, or $129,000 in our PST and our CST taxes. Now, this estimate also will be refined by the state at the end of this month, so we'll be refining that either up or down at the end of the month here. Appropriated cash forward, There was, you'll see in the budget, there's $252,000 in cash forward appropriated in the budget. Of this total, $74,000 is for the building department, $60,000 is state library grant, $100,000 in general fund, and $18,000 is extension service reserve for air conditioner replacement. Reserves have been budgeted at a total of $293,000. Therefore, if all anticipated revenue is received in the next fiscal year, the general fund reserve should increase by $193,681,000. And that still keeps us on the mark to within 5 years to hit fund balance in our general fund. So we feel good with that, the pace that we're on. We're still not taking care of, like I said, the employees and stuff like that, but maybe that can come next year when we get the money. We don't feel like we've got enough fund reserve right now to pull funds out of our reserves for employees. We're kind of scared to do that right now. So unless the revenue projections change dramatically, but we don't think that, we think we've built in a pretty good factor in there.
So, when and if things do change, are you anticipating, or maybe the board anticipating, that addressing the needs of our employees will be a priority?
Yes, and that's something in speaking to each one of you, and I'd like to, we've went with, last 2 years, we haven't went to the roll-up rate. And once that reverses itself, we need to stay, I want to stick to 8.5, but if it goes, I don't want to have to go to the rollback rate. That way we can use those funds or increase them funds in taking care of our employees.
Okay.
That all depends on the housing market.
That all depends on the housing market, so. That's the general fund, kind of the general fund overview. Greg, do you want to kind of take off and go through a couple of your summary pages?
Yeah. Randy, go to the Excel spreadsheet. Each of you got a PDF, very long PDF that is the entire budget. Yeah, we'll start at the beginning. If you don't want to hear anything about that tab, tell me and we'll move to the next one.
And what we'll hit is, we won't hit all 195,000 pages. What we'll hit is probably the first 10 of which are summary roll-ups, and we'll be able to blow up whatever y'all need to on here.
Let's go to the second tab, Brandy, the trim advertisement. We're doing a couple things here,
Trim advertising.
and you may have questions as to why one tab looks like one thing and one tab looks like another. Yeah, can you blow that up a little bit? Maybe a little bit. This is the first page after your table of contents on the large document. This will be in the newspaper. This is a summary of every one of your fund types, and it's required by Department of Revenue, and so this is a good summary of what your budget looks like right now. And so you see a summary there of, by category, your ad valorem tax at the top, your sales tax, use tax, your utility and fuel taxes, then your licenses and special assessments. Those special assessments are the MSBU and some of this road paving in the road fund.
Did this PDF come from you?
From David. He forwarded it to everyone.
You got it?
We have handouts,
We got
correct,
handouts.
Brandy? We have a paper copy if you need it.
If not, I'll forward it.
You have it?
I'll give it to 'em.
Okay. So the top half of this summarizes all of your revenues by category, and then the bottom summarizes your expenditures by category as well: general government, public safety, physical environment, transportation, and such. Also by the fund types, and so you have it on one slide your entire county budget, and right now that is $36,355,428.
What was the budget this year, total budget this year?
Well, let's do that. Let's go to the next slide. And the second page, or the second page after the table of contents, this is the comparative, doing essentially the same thing, but now comparing the current proposed budget to your revised budget, your current year revised budget. And so we're basing our proposal, and this is important to remember, we're not comparing our proposed budget to last year's original budget. We've amended it already 53 times with budget amendments and various resolutions, and so we're trying to look at an accurate picture. So we're looking at the revised budget this current year. And so this current year, we have a budget total of 43 million. If you look at that last column, 43,864,000 versus 36 million. So it's a substantial decrease. Now, you can tell where they're at by looking at the fund category. So if you go back again to the general fund, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the general fund more as we move through this, the general fund is going from 9.3 million, 9.369 to 9.709. And so you have a 3.6% increase. We'll explain that increase in a moment, unless you want to just jump to it now. In special revenue funds, there's almost a $5 million decrease. All right. Well, those are grants for the most part that by the time September gets here, we may have some more numbers on certain numbers that we'll get in grants, and so we may increase this. For example, I'm still meeting with Ezron, who's on the ship and HUD, nailing down the grants for next year on that.
What did he say, $5 million decrease? Oh, he's back on this page. Oh, okay.
And so, as the agenda mentioned, these are moving targets right now, this early in the budget season still. And so if tomorrow we found out we're going to get a DOT grant for whatever, and then our 16 million would go up by that number. And so right now we're looking at $5 million decrease in special revenue funds.
So in the past year, a lot of those amendments were increases from grants?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, and we've amended the general fund, we've amended all of the funds
Right.
at some point this year. And then the third category is your capital project funds. And now these are a combination of 1 cent sales tax, impact fees, capital grants like your DOT SCOP and SCRAP and such. And so right now, the current year we have 6.4 million budgeted, and we're right now looking at 4.8 next year. And so there's a decrease there as well. And then finally, your enterprise funds, which is your sewer, your river sink water, and your solid waste. Budget current year is 6.7, and next year we're looking at 5.3. Now, one caveat to that is we do not have right now, and I know there's still a lot of moving parts with it, if we determine to go with the USDA grant to expand the plant, that's not built into this. That's a $10 million project. And so we don't have enough firm numbers to know that, but right now there's this, the operating side of the enterprise fund is going down.
And what accounts for the, like the decrease in the enterprise funds?
Well, if you want to jump to the last tabs, Brandy, 435S is our sewer.
Give us the page number, just the page number, whatever that
Hold
page
on.
number is.
I'll tell you. I got it.
Page number 86, is that the one you're talking about?
It's 3 or 4 pages from the back. And that's going to be page 83.
That's what we're looking for. That puts us on the right page.
Page 83.
Now we're all on the same page.
And so I think you're asking where's the nuts and bolts to the decrease?
Yeah.
Okay. In the green, it's not green on your printout, but on the green on the slide there, your FY 12-13 revised budget, you have a total of $2,075,000 in revenue. And in this coming year, we're anticipating 1.4 million. The biggest drop there is the Talquin access fees. We're going to get, was it $396?
$396,000.
This current year, we're anticipating getting them this current year. If we don't get them in the current year, we'll add them to next year. But and so obviously we're not going to get that revenue next year if we get it this year. And so there's a huge drop there.
Okay.
You can see the comparison between the revised budget by individual line of revenue versus what we're anticipating next year. Some of them are going up, some of them are going down. Now, below that is your expenses. And you see again, a balanced budget, and you can go line by line. Your professional services, 45,000 versus 105. Your contracted services, 286 versus 291.
That Cleve?
That's Cleve.
Yes, I believe that.
Goes in his pocket.
Believe that is.
Personal pocket.
And so, and again, I don't know if you want me to read down every one of these
No, no,
lines, but
I got it.
that's how you compare the total net
Yeah,
increase.
no, the one just with the talc one was a big one, so.
Yes, yes.
Just out of curiosity, how are you projecting a decrease in utility, electric?
Say that again.
It's got like a $30,000 decrease in electric utilities for sewer, I guess?
Well, you'll notice that we have a revised budget of 149,
Right.
but the current run rates are going to hit 120. And so
And that's one of the things that we've
we're
done.
constantly,
We're constantly revising based on run rates, and we're trying to run, that's how we're squeezing things down, it's based on the run rates. Instead of saying, hey, we got this extra money, we're saying, let's pull it out. If we're on a run rate, let's run at that rate and let's pull it out
So
and
that's-
save that money.
That's 7 months worth,
That's right.
an actual.
That's right.
and we've met with, ESG on these, looked at the run rates, made sure that we're not missing anything, and trying to calculate where we're going to end up with the current year, and then based on that, trying to budget for next year.
Makes sense to me.
That way you cut out a lot of waste. There's a lot, that you've constantly trimmed.
Well, you got a
As
more
the years
efficient
go, you
budget.
constantly tighten budgets down based on run rates. That way you don't get year-end spending. Isn't that right, Chief?
You're taking the sandbagging out.
That's right, take the sandbag out. There's no need for that.
Brandy, go to the last tab. This is page 86. This is your solid waste. So just while we're here at the enterprise funds, again, you see, the current year revised budget is 4.5, and next year is 3.8. Again, the biggest thing here, well, there's several moving parts. One is, we've got cash forward in the current year of $509,000. That's in anticipation of closing or capping the landfill. And this is where the moving parts will take place between now and September. Is that going to get done by September? And so part of that cash is going to be carried forward to next year, and so there'll be a balancing here of how much cash that we've got set aside to cap the landfill, and then that'll tell us how much also we need to borrow, and that's that $1 million there in next year's budget is the excess part that we're going to need to borrow to cap the landfill as DEP is requiring us to do. And right now, you see we've got about $411,000 in cash there, so we're only thinking we're going to have about $100,000 of the project done so far in the current year. So that's the differences between the revenues.
So we're gonna have to borrow $1 million next year in order to cap the landfill?
Yep, well, we got no choice, we've got to.
The reason I was asking, I had thought that whenever, we signed the contract with Waste Pro, I thought that was one of their selling features, is that they was gonna pay for that.
Oh, no.
That was one of the things I was thinking, okay.
If you'll notice, down at the bottom line, your unrestricted fund balance ending, if you notice, we've pulled that, this fund has successfully pulled out from the eternal abyss. And this year, this coming up year, it will pull out, and this year will pull itself out, should. And, next year it'll go positive this year, and it'll go positive in a good way next year.
$1,700 positive is what I'm seeing in net profit.
That beats where we were.
Well, yeah. You're setting the world on fire.
That's right, not setting the world on fire.
We did the public service tax, and we did the sanitation, the $200 on sanitation. Was that not to cover the $1 million? Was that money
Yes.
not?
There's a factor in the $196 that is intended to help pay back the loan, yes.
And this budget, this money where Randy just said we're adding $1,700, that includes the payment, down payment on the loan, the payment on the loan and principal, borrowing the $1 million. So the revenue will take care of the expense of CapEx.
You see,
Okay, that's
see,
what-
That's right, and that's what you're asking, and that's exactly what it is.
see on the bottom, you have the $100,000 and then the $4,000 interest. Again, we haven't borrowed it yet, but that's our rough estimate on what our debt service payments will be, for 10 years.
So we're not creating anything new, it's just that we have this covered with the revenue.
Within the revenue
That's right,
stream.
within the revenue stream, this is.
So we can borrow it.
Whereas in the past, it was running at a pretty bad
That
deficit.
is a bad deficit year over year.
And I'll give you a good example of that. In the actual column under FY 12-13, you see the $184,000 in revenue at the top that's transferred into this fund. That came from the general fund. We've transferred, I think the total is about 1.3 million over the last 4 years to pull this fund out of the hole. The general fund had to cover it.
That's a good point, but going forward for 14, 15 forward, are you showing $50,000 coming from the general
And that-
fund?
What that
That's
is,
just-
that is your, excuse me, Greg.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's your, where the, general fund has to pay for all the exemptions.
See,
That's,
this year
and
it's
that's what that
38.
is. This year's
This year, the
38.
actual number is 38,000.
That's the low income that we.
That's right, the low income, and that's what that number
Somebody has
is.
to pay for it.
Somebody, and the general fund, as per agreement, general fund pays for that.
Where were we just looking? Where's that number that we're looking at?
Right here, Howard.
Right,
Not at this meeting, but I'd like to see what would happen.
that
That number
184,000.
if we
Or the-
raised our number.
Are you on this page? You on page 86?
See where it's yellow?
Yep, 86.
Howard?
It's right there.
1380.
Yeah, oh, 38,198, is that what?
Correct.
You probably kick,
Go to the right of that,
Okay.
and it says
it probably wouldn't change that much based
interfund
on.
transfer of
based
$50,000 a year every
And the
year.
aisles that we had,
I had a person who was too tired to go
I
to
got you.
welfare. and
Thanks.
work, and
Yes.
hadn't had a vacation forever,
all right,
carrying the paper, and he makes 13.8.
yeah.
No, he makes 14.8.
Well, next year, he'll probably be there, so, but unless you guys want to change that up, however y'all want to do that.
And Randy, you speak to something, in our 5-year forecast, we've arbitrarily picked some numbers just as rough estimates. If it stays steady, then obviously the $50,000 will go to 38 every year. And we'll have a little bit extra to play with there. All right, Brandy, unless you have any other questions on the enterprise funds, let's go back to,
I thank you for explaining that one, because I was just wondering about the million.
let's go back to the second tab, and this is page
2 or 3.
page 3. This is where we left off. And so this is the high-level page that sort of does that comparison to you, explains those differences, revenues at the top, expenses at the bottom. So you've got your 4 revenue, or fund categories, revenues on top, expenses on the bottom, and we won't belabor that anymore unless you have any questions on it. The next tab, or page 4, is a high-level summary, and there's actually 2 comparisons here, left and right, but they're both of a review of the 5-year capital plan, countywide, all funds. And so on the left side, you have the 5-year plan by category of equipment. And so you'll notice that you have a operating equipment, that's equipment that's less than $5,000 or doesn't have a asset life of more than 1 year, estimated life. And so that's how much we plan on spending in the current year and in the proposed years out for a 6-year total on operating equipment. It's also, you can see, summarized by how much is going to be spent in the general fund, the building department, the special revenues, and I went ahead here and I separated for you how much is coming from your special revenue fund fees, like boat ramp fees, or recreation fees, or Fund 190, or 911 fees, those kinds of things, versus your special revenue fund grant related operating. And so I've done that on this slide as well.
What does CPF stand for again?
All right, here's your acronyms, and I should have put a key in there. GF is general fund, SRF is special revenue fund, grants and special fees like boating fees or E911. CPF is capital project funds. Those are the same thing. It's 1 cent sales tax, impact fees, or grant-related scop and scrap. And then EF is enterprise fund. And so you have the same categories as you had on the previous page by fund type, by equipment type. And so you have, next year, we're going to spend $236,000 on operating equipment
Be a
countywide.
CPF, what'd you say CPF was?
CPF is Capital Project Fund.
This is
Very confusing.
yes.
Well, we're only dealing with the titles, not even all the account
Worse than the
numbers, and so... Wait till you see the state chart of accounts. The next section is your capital equipment. Those are things that are over $5,000, have a useful life of more than 1 year. Those will be items that we most certainly will depreciate and be calculated there. And you have the same breakdown. Next year, $434,000 estimated to be spent on capital equipment. Things like a vehicle or a tractor or a mower or something like that. And then you have building and other infrastructure. And when I say other infrastructure, let me give you an example. Current year's the equestrian center. It's not really a building, but it's infrastructure type. And so you've got $863,000 proposed to be spent next year on buildings and other infrastructure.
What's the $600,000 in 14-15?
That's your special revenue. That is 600.
Soccer
All
complex?
right, hold on, and I'll tell you. Brandy, I don't think you need to do this, but I'll unhide the lines that are built into that.
And there's an $863,000 capital outlay under
Adjusted
capital
thinking.
project, what does it CPF stand for again, Evelyn?
Capital Project
Capital
Fund.
Project.
Capital Project Fund,
Capital projects.
fee, building, and infrastructure, $863,000.
Yes.
We'll tell you what all that is.
Hold on, I'll tell you in just a second. All right, your 600,000 is...
Which line is that?
The 600,000 is your MSBU fund, and that's the amount that we expect to be spent on the EMS fire building.
In
It's their portion,
14-15,
1415, yes.
so it's not even gonna be built next year.
The way it looks right now.
We couldn't fit it into the 1 cent sales tax plan in the current year.
What about the 863?
All right, hold on. Unhide those. And that is quite a lot of things.
It's the big one.
$300,000 on 1 cent sales tax. Let's see, so let's jump over there. And that's, road repaving,
Road repaving.
yes.
Okay.
Road repaving,
Sales tax, what's that?
Fund 317.
And that's county road repaving.
That's county road repaving, that's resurfacing.
1 cent sales tax.
That's right, resurfacing.
You said that we're having a loan be paid off pretty soon.
Yes, our loan will be paid off in 16-17,
The 1 cent sales tax.
yes, on roads.
There's not one that's gonna be paid off sooner? Sewer. Or was that the sewer?
Sewer, that's sewer. Sewer, one of them sewer, but we just tagged another one on, so.
Brandy, can you jump ahead to Fund 317 tab?
But the good news here that I think, and it needs to be a strategy that you guys vote on at some point in time, is once we get this, and hopefully we get our 1 cent sales tax extended, as you see how critical it is to our infrastructure of the county, we made a loan repayment for a big paving job that was made, and in retrospect, kind of looking at it and running our models out, we feel like that we can we can be much more effective if we set projects every year to pave, and we pave projects every year versus a big suite of projects and borrowing money. And because the problem was is it strapped us in the previous years, really strapped being able to do anything. You had one big surge of money, and then it just kind of strapped what we were doing. So I think that's a strategy that we need to discuss and talk about and to move forward. Kind of a pay-as-you-go type, because there's, in this fund, is what, about 1.2 comes into it, 1.1, somewhere in that, and that'll be increasing over the years, and that's enough to, we put $750,000 to $800,000 a year towards paving roads, which is a lot. And we've increased our road striping, which is
Take 'em over.
very expensive.
Let's go to page 78.
Yeah.
You can follow along.
Go to page 78. We'll just hit the 1 cent sales tax, since that seems to be an important thing here.
There was
As
a,
well, I'm sure Mary Dean is waiting for that as well, aren't you, Mary Dean?
Mary Dean gonna leave when we're done with this?
Mary, I felt Mary Dean's laser beam eyes hitting me on the 1 cent sales tax.
Count me in on the pay-as-you-go. We got that feeling.
I think that's the best, in this instance, I think that's the best way to go. So anyway, as you notice, the first line item on the roads there, that'll be 400. We've got budgeted $445,000 for principal and interest of $36,000. We're going to be putting in reserve $98,000, $858. And the reason that we do that is we need to reserve some money back on this fund so that it can work in the future. Then we've got $425,000 in capital outlay for new paving.
Are you on page 78, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I may be.
Right about here.
We're on the fiscal.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
14.
Yeah. Fiscal year 13-14.
Which page are you on?
78.
78.
Can you begin again?
All right. Your first line's up there on the road paving. Well, to take you all the way to the top, the 1 cent sales tax road paving we're projecting next year to collect $1.132129 in road paving funds. We'll have a cash forward of $200,000 that we'll use this year, and we'll reserve $98,000 of that. We've got a loan payment for the existing loan of roughly $475,000. We've got $425,000 of new paving, and that new paving is primarily paving the main loop roads in Wakulla Gardens, is what our existing plan is. Well, y'all have to approve that, but right now, as far as our planning, that's what we've got planned.
And that's, okay, and that's this year now?
That would be, we could do that starting in October.
Well, I don't want to get into it too deep here, but there's also a list of the previous boards that approved.
That's right.
Emily Lane comes to mind.
And we've got a new matrix that we want you guys to look at and approve. So realize we've parked $425,000 here, and we would recommend that you do something in Wakulla Gardens, but at the end of the day, that's up to you five.
Right, because there are, like as Chairman mentioned, roads that were promised and voted on by the board. Also, Lonnie Raker, and...
Some of those aren't realistic to pave because of right-of-way issues, but I think...
But if they were there, okay, if we did have the right-of-way, then that's always been a priority.
I agree. Lonnie Ricker, I don't think we'll ever have, by the way,
I
because
think we will.
And if you'll notice,
Emily Lane has 60-foot right.
if you notice in the 5-year plan, the 14-15, the next column over, you'll see how all of a sudden we were able to, next year as that loan payment goes down, we're able to throw $300,000, kind of spread the wealth between repaving and new paving, because, we've gotten a very large inventory of roads that we need to repave, that are going to need to be, so we need to start a repaving cycle just like we do a new paving cycle. So,
We typically have used scrap and SCOT money.
well, that's just for collector roads. These are subdivision roads and non-collector roads, and we got them all over the place, and some of them are starting to fail.
Just a side note on that, I saw one of the striping machines, that 319 and 98 the other day.
That's not ours.
I know
They ain't got to it yet.
Should have been ours, but it wasn't. The bottom line is that saves a lot of roads.
Yeah.
It wasn't striping per se, it was filling in breaking in the asphalt.
Mhm.
and they were doing, it was some company that's all they do, and they were laying down a 4-inch,
Right,
and it was
sealing it off?
sealing it
Yep,
off.
with a, we don't have the money to do that.
It's one of those things we hardly.
Yeah, we'll get there over time, but right now, we don't have those funds to do that. We've also established, two sidewalk projects at $75,000 each, and here's the intent there. Those sidewalk projects are for the senior center to hopefully work with the state DOT and use that $75,000 as a match for getting money from DOT, to get the sidewalks extended from the senior center to 319.
And we talked to Harry at the CRTPA about pushing our money up there.
That's right, and this, by putting some grant money or match money to it, that pulls us up the list with DOT and with the CRTPA. And the other $75,000 outlay is for the Panacea, Otter Creek, Senior Center as well, and actually taking a sidewalk down Otter Creek Road, taking it across 319, Senior Club, and then taking it down to almost to, just past, Ronald Fred's, place.
And also to go the other way is what we're talking
We
about.
need
Yeah.
to go up to the post office.
And go up to the post office. So that's the purpose of those. $75,000 can't touch those jobs, but as a match part of it, it can, and it would entice the state.
Does the 425 cover the loop road in, Wakulla Gardens?
Gives us 8 roads.
Gives us 8 roads, is that right?
Hold on, I got the list here.
Here's the list.
Partial 4 roads, 2 complete roads, and just half as much. The ones on the list are Feather, Kiowa, Comanche, Navajo, Mohawk, Broken Bow, Sioux, and Apache,
Does that,
all in Unit 1.
okay, now, does that consist of a loop? Okay, you can just tell me you don't.
I'll
Oh.
show you the picture right there, that's what we're talking about.
Does that use up all of the allotted money?
Yes.
Okay, then there has to be a decision-making as to, the roads that if we have right-of-ways on completing Lonnie Raker or Council Moore, where there's our policy has always been to try to pave the roads that connect
But at least you don't.
one road to another, to get to an asphalt road, to another asphalt road. So I think we have to look at that, how it plays out as well. So that money's there, but not necessarily allocated for those roads, but can pave them.
That's right, that's right, and we just base that based upon, really the most, what the previous board had kind of wanted, but there's no, like I say, end of the day, that's y'all's decision to make.
Can you send us
Have
a
a lot
list of
more
those roads?
discussion.
That's just a plan, I know it's subject to approval, but
Yeah. We can actually send you we got a whole list of all the roads in the county by type and by the age of the roads and how much it costs and all that stuff. We can send that to you. We did last year, a complete inventory of all the roads.
So, I don't know if you have, but I have it, the list of all the roads that have already previously been approved to pave.
Yeah, we've got that as well. If you go down the line, road striping, we were actually able to move some money to increase that. Road striping is very expensive, and here's the problem is we can paint it with just the regular, temporary paint, and we can get a lot of stuff done, but then it's gone in 2 years, and we have to go back and do it all over again. So this is putting thermoplasty or the new modified versions that's coming out. Spray thermo, and what is the cost per mile on this?
The last bid showed $4,500 per lane per mile,
Yeah, $4,500 per lane per mile,
per strike.
For
per
stripe,
stripe.
solid's a lot more expensive than,
So it don't go very far, $175,000.
contacted Leon County.
Yes.
Do they have a hot spray truck? All they have is paint?
Yeah,
Contract it all out.
contract it all.
And that 175, for example, would get you almost 9 miles? Almost 9 miles.
Which is nothing.
And so the plan was to repaint Alexander and MLK.
There's a ton of them now.
But we'll
Put it wherever you want.
be bringing that to you guys as well.
75 would probably be expensive then.
Yeah. All right, moving on. If you notice though, before we move past roads there, you'll notice the fund balance, down at the fund balance ending. We're maintaining a healthy, we don't have to have, there's not a reserve policy for the 1 cent sales tax, but we try to maintain where we don't run it into a deficit. There's a little deficit, that's right, that's right. Now, moving on to the next one, which is public facility infrastructure. The share of the money there is $377,000 that we'll get. We're pulling $600,000 forward.
I don't know.
Change the page.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm,
79.
page 79.
All right.
I'm sorry. All right, you'll see there's, under the adjusted, it's $377,376, $600,000 cash forward, and the capital outlay, for the, project. The first one is the, $75,000. This will do our EMS, building design, all the engineering, everything that, I doubt it'll be that much money, but we just earmarked that much for it, as well as maybe some work towards the end of next year for that. Then we've got, what's the interfund transfer there? That is, oh, that's the Taj Mahal extortion payment of our esteemed county clerk here.
Is that the loan?
Well, the loan is the 205, and the 37,000, but they're gonna fall short in one of their funds where they funded it in the past, so.
Two loans.
So we're gonna possibly have to make the difference up in 1 cent sales tax.
Your courthouse loan is paid back by two sources. This portion of the 1 cent sales tax, and then the court fees that is generated by the users of the courthouse, the courtroom. And so those user fees have significantly dropped considering the economy, and getting everyone to pay has been difficult. And so the revenue source from the special revenue fund is short, and so we're gonna have to make it up with this facility money.
Does this have Station 8 rehab in it? Are you
You have a question?
somewhere else?
That's somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going on the same lines. When you're saying about the EMS building, is that part of the EMS fire complex?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you were asking, Chairman?
I was asking about the Station
That's in
8
the EMS fund.
rehab, the fire station, volunteer fire station.
Right,
That's Station 8. That's
Right.
a different fund.
different fund. All right, the next line item is the payment for the Taj Mahal that we have to have. Then you go down operating equipment, $50,000, $25,000 is for the sheriff's HVAC unit change out. They have old units, and they've got a load of old units. Instead of putting a chiller in a long time ago, they decided they'd put individual units in, and now we're paying for that. And this won't even, we'll probably have to do this year over year. Also, $25K for change out of BOCC, our HVAC units, if we can make it till then.
Where are you on the page?
I'm at operating equipment.
I got you.
Okay. All right, then we have $300,000 for the sheriff's annex building. This will be coupled along with the $150,000 for the impact fees to build the sheriff's annex building. The next is the community center construction, $100,000. The $250 that we had told, we're projecting we'll spend $150 of that. We're going to hold out another $100 till next year to make sure everything goes through before we spend that $100, and that's what that earmark is. Down to the bottom of that, the $100,000. If everything comes through with the deal that we're working with TCC on the soccer complex, we're proposing $100,000 worth of land purchase, which would be two parcels joining this parcel that would complete it and give us access to Cage Posey, or it turns from Cage Posey to what right there?
Alexander across the road.
Alexander, yeah, so, anyway, that's what that is. Next page is your public safety infrastructure fund. You'll see we'll collect we're projecting to collect $283,000 there next year. We'll pull $350,000 forward. $295,000 of that will go to the sheriff to purchase 9 vehicles. $100,000 we're pulling into a contingency line in case we need it for the sheriff's building. This is just in case we need it, in case the bids were to come back. We'll reallocate that if not. The $50,000 equipment outlay, that is for EMS new chassis. And then we've got a reserve of $188,000.
Why was there 350 cash forward that basically just wasn't spent?
Wasn't spent, Way
But now
projects
you're
work.
projecting 300,000.
That's right.
Roughly a year.
That's right.
For every year for
That's
vehicle
right.
replacement.
That's right, that's right. And this should catch, the sheriff's department is behind right now due to the economy, and they backed off of, in fact, I think it went, Meredith, I think you went 1 year or 2 years without buying any vehicles. Right. So this will catch them back up, and you'll see how it kind of levels itself back out.
That was because our reserve was in
That's
such
right.
poor shape.
That's
We
right.
needed our cash back.
That's right, we need our cash, that's
Not like we
right.
could spend it on something else.
That's right, that's right. Then you come down to the next page, which is our Parks and Rec.
81.
Yep. And you'll see we'll collect here, we're anticipating $94,344, cash forward of $14,000. We've got a capital outlay next year of $100,000, and that's going to be miscellaneous projects based upon there's a couple of things we're waiting on for that $100,000. We've applied for a grant, an RTP grant, as you know, for Hudson Park and Hudson and Azalea Park. And if we get that, then we'll be able to pull more cash forward over into this year. If we don't get that, we'll know it in August. If we don't get that, then we'll spend the $300,000. So that's the reason I'm kind of just telling you that cash forward could increase, or it could stay the way it is.
All depends on current year spending.
Yeah.
Let's do that again. I'm particularly interested in
Under
recreation.
Under fiscal year 12-13, you see the capital outlay equipment line, it says 300,000 in the last column for 12-13.
Yeah.
We're projecting that we're gonna spend 300,000 this current year.
Okay,
If that's the case, then if you go up above, we're gonna cash forward 14,000. Okay? Now, obviously, if we don't spend $300,000, if we spent zero, then we would cash forward $314,000. Right? So that's why it's a moving target with the current year expenditures. And as David said, the reason he's not sure is he's waiting to find out about a grant.
What was that grant, one more time?
$200,000 RTP grant.
how much in that rec budget is the county actually putting in for getting grants? How much are we actually?
We're,
All of this.
all of this,
All of this is 1 cent sales tax.
94,000.
$94,000 each year, or next year,
So 94 is what we're.
was the allocated portion that goes to this,
Of the
yes.
ones- of the 1 cent sales tax.
That's for maintaining facility?
That's that's primarily for capital or major rehab.
Look at the bottom.
Which is not much
Look at the bottom of
money.
the page, you see the wish list?
Yeah,
We've basically, told, Brian, look, you've got $100,000 every year, so allocate it out, and so we've just gone through sort of his own priorities. Yours may be different, and you may tell him to move something up or back or whatever, but you see the list of items there, and then the numbers under the year is the priority. Is it priority 1, priority 2, all the way up to priority 6, for example, in 13-14. So he gave us a cost estimate on each item, and so we've prioritized them to
and
spend
this
$100,000
money
every
comes
year.
from the one cent?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Now, how can I double that number?
You have to change the allocation of the 1 cent sales tax.
Very easy to do.
Okay, can it be doubled at this time, or we gotta wait until we do a,
Heather, what's that process?
Well, we'd have to do definitely by ordinance, but I'd have to look and see what the ballot language said for when it was approved.
Isn't there
to
a
see if
1
there
cent
was
sales tax
restrictions in the ballot
committee?
language.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the committee has the ability to recommend to you the reallocation of that.
But remember, of course, if you take it from if you double this, you're taking it from road paving or something like that, which, that's the
Yeah,
decision for us to make.
That's the decision you guys make.
Yeah, in my own preference, we're, the most important part of our county, we're giving the very least to.
Which one would you take it out of?
I don't care, let him take it out of all of it.
Then if I don't do it right, it's my fault, right?
He and Greg can move money around.
I would, if we took it out of anywhere, just talking out loud, I'd say take it out of road paving.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
You just, I thought about that, and basically,
If that's what you do.
my deal would be, you know, the people who know the most about the budget, let them figure out where they want to take it out.
Well, but but also that becomes, that's y'all's decision because y'all set our priorities as far as needs are concerned.
I
Yeah.
do understand that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
If we do start cutting it around, I'd like to see us look at the public safety and maybe separate out a portion for the sheriff's department and a portion for fire and EMS. That way, you know, each side knows what they have, and I definitely welcome input on both sides, but it just seems to me, instead of, you know, them both battling for that same pot of money, it might be good to, you know.
Well, even more
Identify it.
stressful is when you have something just for public facilities, right, or public buildings. Obviously, the courthouse got most of that, but that could have been used for a fire station, right? So,
I would say as soon as we finish, if we get this thing re-upped, if we get it re-upped, we finish paying for the Taj Mahal, then we'll have plenty of money.
well, it could have been used for rec and could have been used for other things, but I want to bring it back to taking money away from the roads. That 1 cent sales tax, that was passed on the backs of promising people road paving. I mean, that's really what made that fly. And to go now and start diminishing that even more, I think, sends the wrong message.
and this isn't the time we're gonna change it, but roughly what's,
It ends in 1718,
what is the road percentage that goes to road?
60.
60, and then Parks and Rec gets like 5?
5.
So,
And so but it ends in a couple of years, and so in your new ballot language, as you put it before the voters to renew it, you can put a new allocation before them. And then you've honored the promise of the first 15 years, and you just change the next 15 or however long it is.
That's fair enough.
or,
I agree with that.
it is put in there that the board could change the allocation.
Yeah, it's by resolution.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair enough.
that is the 1 cent sales tax spiel.
All right, we've gone through 3 pages now at the front.
We got 152 to go now.
That only took all-
We were on page 3, the capital, 5-year capital plan when we brought up those questions. So if you go back to page 3, I'll just hit the high points again. The left side is the kind of equipment that is in the 5-year plan. And then on the right side, we've done it by fund, and so now you can tell, okay, how much is the general fund gonna spend, how much is the building department gonna spend, or your special revenue funds, and so on. And of course, they match. It just gives you a different picture of where your capital money is coming from. And that's the right side of page 3.
Page 3 is really page 4.
I'm on page 5.
Yeah, don't count the table, whenever I'm not counting the table of contents, and I thought I matched my numbers to match yours, but
Randy's got
I
page
didn't.
5.
Am I off one?
Well, you're off, what you're talking about is on page 3, I believe.
Yes.
This page here is fine.
Which page?
Okay,
And that's page 5 on yours? Okay, I'll add 2 to every time I mention something then.
Randy's just flying by herself over there. I don't think
Yeah.
she's keeping up with
Randy's keeping up. All right, any other questions on this page? This is a summary of your 5-year plan in 2 different ways. All right, next page, which would be page 6.
Can I just go back to that
Oh,
part? These-
sure.
These are monies that are targeted to be spent on different projects that are not listed here, that's in the, fine. I mean,
The projects aren't listed here, but
Right.
on the next page they are.
oh, okay.
And so your next page, page 6, lists every one of the projects by fund, and then we have a description over there, that last column, it tells you exactly what is being bought. Now, I say exactly, for example, a couple lines down, there's just some generic equipment in a couple of the lines, like a computer here or there. It's not very specific, but if they're large dollars, we've already got them earmarked to a particular project, and so that is your complete operating and capital equipment project list for 5 years.
And even though it says generic, within our original 5-year plan, majority of these, there is something behind that we've already done a 5-year plan like for our IT system. So we've got a plan on our IT system for the next 5 years. So we don't know what, we can put it in here, but it's kind of a generic thing. We can, any of these, we can explain those away at any point in time, hopefully.
Well, it's like the sheriff's vehicles, we've got 9 vehicles. I don't have a clue if they're gonna be cars, trucks, or, what it is they need 3 years out. It's 9 vehicles. So, it's 2 computers, it's just generic computer equipment. So, if you don't have any questions on this page, we're gonna move on.
Well, I want to ask one thing about the boat ramps, because a lot of people ask about the boat ramps. We were going to try to fix those through the FWC grant, weren't we? Because I didn't see a line item in the...
FWC grant we're getting this year, or we'll hopefully get this year, will cover signage in the Ochlockonee Bay to replace pylons or markers that were destroyed. We've already replaced the signs, but these actually replace pylons. To redo boat ramps, the FWC grant will not, if it was done by an FWC grant, they will not pay to redo that boat ramp. You have to change it. So this year we went with the signs. Next year we're going to select a boat ramp that we do not have paved, such as it could be the N.T. Smith right there at Tallahassee Yacht Club at the on the Ochlockonee River to actually.
Right down the road from your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To actually build a ramp there. So, or wherever we decide to. But with FWC, you can't purchase land. You can't. There's a lot of things.
That's an old, like the one at Mash's Hands. It tears. A lot of people says it tears up their axles.
FWC, we've got money. That's the purpose of setting that fund up, and we'll hit that fund in a minute. We've already made steps to taking care of that.
Okay.
So they paid for that ramp.
And the ramp itself is not that old.
That's right. And we already checked with FWC about doing work and dredging and everything.
They already did it once. They won't do it
They said
again.
we already done that one, so we tried.
When will that work? When will you start working on that ramp?
The ramp at we've already done a lot. We've already done a lot of work on the ramp, and we're going to continue. We've got more projects to do there.
Yeah, but on the drop off.
We've fixed some of the drop off. Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
So I won't drop my axles off.
If you stop at the stop sign,
Well, I understand that, but if
You-
you go past the.
you got it. You're on your own.
Yeah.
We've put stuff there, but realize, understand is that power loading it really, it makes it tough, because you can't hardly stabilize anything down there.
Even big old rocks, it'll blow
We
them
put
out.
big rip out, they'll blow them out. Well, they'll dredge all the sand out, and it'll keep dropping them down.
You get those cable mat things and go across the canal and drag it in there, but anyway.
Yeah, but we're working on that, and that's the reason we created that fund, to continue. It's a lot better than what it was.
Well, I appreciate the signs.
Yeah, it's a lot better. We've got to get some dredging done in
You
there.
got the signs, you
Yeah.
should not go by, you shouldn't.
That's right.
Cars by the sign.
That's right. Everybody has a sign like the St. Mark's, the federal facility over there. They have the signs, don't go past this mark, and if you go past it, you're going to drop off. So
Didn't have for a while.
that's the biggest problem with ramps is maintaining them, is the power loading. That is the
Maintains the
biggest.
ones like Pine Creek and Smith Creek, by the way, is that the forest?
Those are Forest Service.
Because I
if I'm
remember
not
one
mistaken.
time, we worked with them to do remember with Angie Chapel, we went out here?
We did joint business with it,
The one at Pine Creek is gone, pretty much. David's gonna bring it from next to his house.
Randy, we're gonna skip the next tab and go to the following one, general fund expense by type.
Closed off.
This is page 10, the next one. Page 9, you can review that. It doesn't give you any more information than we've already, just another way of looking at it, so we'll skip it. Page 10 is a summary of the general fund. Now, this and the following several pages are all general fund summaries. And just let me say it up front that there are a couple different views of the general fund. For example, Department of Revenue requires us to add in the building department to the general fund. It is a general fund department. It's just restricted funds, and so we have it separated. But as far as the Department of Revenue is concerned, we have to report it as the general fund. So one of these includes the building department. One of them includes the sheriff, to look at the holistic, all of that together. And then one of them just looks at the general fund, excluding the building department and excluding the sheriff. And so there's different ways, but including the other constitutionals. And so there's different ways of looking at it. And so that's what the next series of pages does. And so page 10 on your left here,
Well, wait, so you leaving that? I just had a question on, a
Yes.
couple of questions on that page that we just left. On membership,
on the page we
oh,
skipped.
it's on page 8.
Our page 8.
Yeah, okay, that's the 5-year plan. All right.
The GF expense summary by type.
General fund.
Yeah, is that the page you're looking at?
So it
Okay.
includes building department, but not sheriff.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's your page 10, right?
No, that's our page 8.
Eight.
Page 8.
What page is it on yours, Brandon?
It is, tab 7.
Wow.
All right. Is it this page here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one we're gonna look at
No,
next.
no, no,
No,
no,
no, no.
no, that's not it. Go back up, Brandy.
Page 4,
No, keep going. I'll tell you when to stop.
that's the detail. This is the summary.
Oh,
That's not the page you're looking at?
yeah.
That was the one she just had up.
It was?
Yeah, that was,
The one we just had up, yeah,
she just had it up.
yeah. It's the general fund expense by type.
We want this page right here.
Yes, general fund expense by type. Yes.
Now, what you won't see is you won't see on yours, you won't see that right side. That's right, the right side.
Okay.
Here's what get confused about this. I have to be able to print this on a piece of paper, and so, you see that little white column right down the middle there, or to the right? That's the page break, and so everything to the left is the page you're looking at, and everything to the right is the page following that.
The next page, all right.
Yes.
Okay, so on the page that is our page 8, there's a memberships and association with an increase of 25.87%.
Yes.
What's that due to?
Jessica can confirm this. I think that's the Muni code.
Tell me again what it was?
It's the memberships and advertising, or is that right?
Memberships and
Unicode is-
association.
Is what takes care of our,
Advertising and
$800
promotion?
Ordinances.
And they codified orders and everything.
We need to cut up in price.
Which line is that?
We've never budgeted.
Memberships.
it's memberships and association, it's about 8 from the bottom.
Oh, that's an increase of $8,110.
Correct.
Hold on, I'll tell you the detail. That includes the following line items: Chamber of Commerce, Florida Association of Counties, Appalachia Regional Planning Council, CRTPA, Economic Development Council. There's a variety.
Are any of those new?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
The increase is the Muni code. It went from $4,700 to $15,000 is our estimate.
How is that?
Because we weren't budgeting
It was
correctly.
not being budgeted correctly. And Jessica kept calling that, last year she sounded that alarm as well.
Okay,
Nobody listened.
so thank you.
But we listened this
You
year.
listen now.
We listen.
You're saying the fee didn't go up, just the amount we're budgeting?
Right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's one of the challenges that we had. This is obviously the first year we were, taking over the budget, is, that's why we just totally ignored the original budget, there were so many changes that seemed to be made. This is just one of those lines where we've been paying it all along, it's just, wasn't budgeted properly.
This is your first year taking over the budget?
The clerk's office helping David, yes. Yes.
Okay,
I think that was the goal.
So this is intended to give you another perspective on the general fund. And so instead of looking at account category types, general fund and all that junk, this looks at real lines, salaries, wages, FICA, retirement, health insurance, workers' comp, and the list goes on there by operating code of what you had in the current year budget as revised versus what we have for next year. The increase or decrease, and then the percentage.
I'm good.
All right? And we're going to explain some of those a little further in one of the other slides, so if you can hold your questions, we'll get to those. At the bottom of this, what we've tried to do is to show, okay, we talked about the general fund budget going from 9.369 to 9.709. That's a $340,000 increase over the current year. So where's that money going? And in summary, that's what the bottom shows. Well, 280 of it is built into a reserve. And so you back that off. That's not we're not intending on spending that. And then we've got a contamination cleanup cost of $100,000. That's not in the current year, but it is next year. That's a one-time cost. It's not recurring. And so we've backed that $100,000 out. And because the building department's included in this, I backed out their change. And so you actually have a decrease in spending of almost $22,000 this year.
Explain to me, Greg, how we can have an increase of $340,000, but our property values went down 4-point-something%. Is there deficit spending somewhere in the budget?
No, not in this category, there's not deficit spending.
You see what I'm saying? How can-
Yeah, well, I understand the way it's set up right now, and Greg, you want to explain it, go ahead. You
Yeah,
can if you
well-
want to. You try it. I can explain it. The fine and forfeiture fund takes the majority of the ad valorem. We're a smaller portion of that, so when that goes down, we don't get hit as hard as like the sheriff does. But here's what we did in this though, is out of our fund, we absorbed the FRS, we absorbed getting 2.5 positions, a grant position and another code enforcement officer, and a half a person for animal control. We absorbed the insurance, and also we transferred to the sheriff's department $20,000, roughly $20,000, to balance it out so that they're even with what they got last year minus the contingencies of $250,000. We also out of this, there was a $20,000 bump in the due to FRS in the allocation that we're giving to, or that is given to the property appraiser's office. The tax collector office came in at par to where they're at this year, in fact a slight decrease. And Buddy's department, we had a slight increase there due to FRS as well. And then the clerk's office, they came in at par. They came in exactly where their budget was. They absorbed the FRS.
So we took 250 or something away from the sheriff.
No, it was contingency dollars that we had it was reserved, so they're gonna pull that, if they need to reserve that, they're gonna pull that out of their reserves.
No department is in deficit spending.
Other than the fine and forfeiture fund, which is the sheriff's department.
Still have to deal with that.
And we still have to deal with that.
250 though, and did we plus our budget?
No.
Okay.
No, so this is, what you're seeing is actually at the end of the day, from the actual budget this year, we did all of that and cut our budget by $21,000. And put a $280,000 reserve.
Just wanted to ask, if it hadn't have been for the increase in the FRS, we would possibly most likely have been able to give our employees a
Oh,
raise.
most definitely, we would have. And that's the reason it left. We've got a page that shows you what it costs to give a raise, and we would have been able to, if without the FRS, we'd have been able to give a raise throughout all county employees.
You
Basically
think?
$106,000 it went up.
Well, that's just that portion, so. Across the board, it was very, like, the sheriff's department, they toted a pretty good whipping, and so did the constitutional officers, because their increases were just like you guys. Y'all are constitutional officer, and myself, we were all higher hit on that totem pole.
And your agenda item points out that there's still some outstanding issues here. You know, this budget isn't finished. We don't even have the state revenue estimates yet. And they won't come out to the end of the year. Just for grins and giggles,
In the state year.
I'm sorry, the end of the month of June, towards the end of the June or early July.
I'll ask the question. We got a raise?
You did.
No,
Well, not yet, y'all will.
we don't know what
Okay.
the state sets your salary. We don't know what that is yet either.
So having said that, we have to take that. We can't have our employees.
I don't know if you can legally turn it back in or not. That's a decision.
I wouldn't turn it back in, but if I have a choice of taking a raise over my employees getting a raise, I'll let them have it.
Yes, they can. They can volunteer. A new statute was passed 2012 that allows you to voluntarily adjust your salary. It used to be set by statute and you couldn't do anything about it, but you can now.
The state sets your salaries and that's not factored in here. We have no increase factored in for the constitutional officers or the commissioners.
Constitutional officers can do the same.
Right.
They now have the discretion to take a lower salary.
So we don't know what the state will set those salaries at. We'll have to adjust that. Now, one of the other moving factors here is the state revenues, the half-cent sales tax, all of the state revenue sharing that we get. We don't know what those numbers are yet. We've estimated 2.1% increase. If it's lower than that, then we've got a problem. If it's more than that, just for grins and giggles, if it comes in twice that, then you may be able to afford to go ahead and pass on a 1% or 2% COLA. I don't know what it'll be, but
When are we gonna know for
there's still some
sure?
moving parts.
When are we gonna know for sure about the decrease? I mean, we budgeted 4-point-something% decrease in value.
I think July 1, right?
Donnie, they'll certify your role, I guess,
Yeah, July
if you're
1.
looking at, that's probably about right.
He'll give us 2 weeks' time on July 15th, turn over to you a pretty good estimate, because by then we should have the state revenue estimates, Donnie's estimate. The only thing we won't get is the constitutional officer salaries. That typically isn't released until late, or sometime in August sometimes.
If the numbers come out in the end that would allow us to give a raise, I would definitely support it.
Well, that would be up to y'all. But it's just the next page. If you flip the page, which is the right side of this same summary here.
This gives you an idea of if a 1%, a 2%, or a 3% raise. General fund is, you can see by property appraiser, clerk of court, BOCC, what all those would do. Sheriff's Department, everything aggregated together.
Now, and on here, these numbers are based on real dollars that each constitutional submitted to us for what their salaries and wages were. So we can calculate the FICA exactly on that. The only thing that's an estimate is the retirement calculations here, because there's so many different retirement rates for depending on how many types of employees you have. We went with an average, and so all the constitutionals except the sheriff and the board are all based on a 13% retirement rate. I think we based yours on 15.5 is what I saw the rough estimate was in total. And so if that's way off, I need to know, but this just gives you a ballpark of what a 1%, 2%, and 3% cost of living adjustment would cost us countywide, which is $115,000 for every percent.
Okay,
All right, the next page, the next slide.
You mind if I make a comment?
I don't care.
A portion of our reserve fund in the sheriff's office is now to fund it from cash to the board, is to fund a grant. It has to be renewed to the board. I would prefer or recommend you to ask carry forward in order to fund that, because when it comes due, then we're going to have to come up with $1,000. Does that make sense?
Could you interpret that for me, Greg?
Let me make sure I understand. Right now, they have a grant. That grant covers 3 years?
3 years, 1 year.
3 years. The grant's paying for the position. In year 4, the county has to absorb that position.
For 1 year, right? We have
At least 1 year.
For
For
1
at
year.
least 1 year.
Right.
And in order to meet that requirement, the sheriff's office cut their budget in order to allow those dollars to be there. So when year 4 came around, they'd be available and would have to fight to get an increase.
It's 1 year of salary, right?
1 year's worth of
3 law enforcement, okay,
$150,000.
okay.
I think the point that's being made is if you spend the reserves, then in year 4, there won't be any funding for that position.
You don't fund the reserve.
3 positions, actually.
Yes, you
Or-
take that away from the reoccurring cost, and it's being funded from the non-reoccurring cost.
I guess the bottom line is if we take it away, you leave those positions that were grant funded, they no longer have any money.
That's right. If you take it away, then we have to increase our budget 3 years down the road.
You have to increase it or drop those
$150,000.
positions.
Yes.
For at least 1 year.
You pull the positions with the grant money. You got the positions with the grant money. If you don't fund it, then you're gonna have to fund it out of your department, or you will drop the positions.
No, we are required to fund it for 1 year.
Okay, after that, yeah.
Because they keep maintaining a level of officer.
I understand, but after that 1 year, if you don't fund it, you drop the positions.
Correct.
Or
Yes.
you can fund it out of your dollars. Or if you don't fund it out of your dollars and we don't fund it, then you drop the positions.
That's correct.
Okay.
So this is, I'm sorry. This is really a decision-making process within the sheriff's department, as I see it, is, you know, you have X amount of dollars, whatever that turns out to be, where they allocate it from in their budget. I mean, it's not just a matter of saying, we don't want to take it from our reserves, there are other opportunities to adjust their budget. Am I missing something?
I don't think you are.
Okay.
Well, if we transfer more over, I understand that the reserves went up 280,000, and I guess we maintained a level of 400,000 this year. So it increases your reserves to $680,000. A portion of that could be used to support that.
What are the 3 positions, if you, the,
There's a juvenile department that is really great,
Well, I think this is kind of the prelude, and we need to look at the fine and forfeiture fund, the sheriff's fund. It's gonna evolve into a bigger picture because, with some things that's happened, so we'll look at that fund in just a minute. Let's move on, and then we'll get to that fund, because that's a big elephant sitting in the room, so.
Okay.
If you go to the next slide, the next page, you're looking at essentially the same line items, the same thing, but now we've included the fine and forfeiture fund to see the whole picture here. And so, and now you have a notes column
on page 10?
over to the right that shows what the increases or decreases, they're summarized here in the notes. And so, I don't know if you have any particular questions on some of these lines. Obviously, the top half is your revenues, and then your bottom half is expenses, and most of the increases are retirement and health benefit increased costs.
Way to go, Cheryl, $1,600 reduction.
What I tried
You
to...
also gave us a $50,000 check last week, too.
We're also assuming we're gonna have $176,000 in less of litigation.
That's right.
Well, one of them was a settlement.
was a
That's
big
where a
settlement.
large settlement the current year, you know. You're right, if there's a settlement next year, the budget's blows up and there's no reserve.
But we're not, right now, we don't have anything that we're concerned about settling next year, so.
I think that's the one that was talking about.
So there's no sense in just, we'd rather reserve that money and be able, versus just sticking in a
I don't
line
think so.
item.
The settlement was, what was it, the settlement with Roddenberry?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was wrong with.
I thought that was already
Roddenberry.
finished.
Yeah,
I know.
that was last
Right,
year,
with
this year's
that.
budget, it hit this year's
Expense in
budget.
this year.
We had to fund it this year, so next year our budget's going down.
Next year.
Okay.
We're budgeting less in litigation-related costs. And so what I've done at the bottom of this page is get back into the same number that we had on the previous page. And so again, just show that where the substantial changes are, and they're between the reserves and the contamination costs.
And I'd also like to note, if you look at the EMS expense, we actually reduced the budget there by $35,562. It would have been more if we hadn't gotten hit. That is due to us watching what we're doing, as well as us fully funding full-time positions versus doing the flex. This was where we were burning, the flex was burning up the overtime last year. We made a switch. We actually hired people. This is where you hire people, and it's actually cheaper to hire people versus not. And we were able to do by $32,000, including this was hit also with the FRS hard, and still with that, we're able to reduce the budget by $32,000.
I'll just make a comment here, and I'll probably bring it up at some board meeting in the future, is I have some concerns regarding the animal control and the amount of money we're budgeting as compared to what our mission is with animal control. So we wanted to look at that sometime in the future, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to discuss it here.
They're proposing $183,000.
Correct.
You think it should be more?
I don't want to get into a full discussion, but I think that,
That's a deep discussion.
yeah, it's a big discussion.
Let's move on next time.
Okay, next page, again, is another general fund summary. And this time, I believe this one does not include the sheriff nor the building department, so this is, it does include the transfers to the other four constitutionals because they're in general fund. But this, apart from those four, this is a picture of just the general fund board departments. And so, again, we've got that comparison there between the current year and next year. Again, on the surface, it shows a $400,000 increase, $9,044,000 to $9,402,000. But again, you have to back out the reserve. You have to back out the contamination cost of $100,000. So that's $380,000 of the $400,000 essentially. So you back into the same $20,000 in cost savings by that review.
This doesn't include any capital projects.
No. It includes some operating equipment, as we talked about in the 5-year plan, but no capital equipment.
So you're projecting, for example, the EMS, projecting at 1.3 million, but we budgeted 1.6.
Correct.
All right.
That's for what? More people, or?
No, we budgeted at 1.6 last year, and we're on a run rate of 1.3 right now, but we've also haven't entered the summer yet, and that's all salary, so, but if we hit the run rate that we've got in here, then we'll be able to reduce our budget further. There's no additional positions in the MS.
Every month when the financials come out, we add, this is based on April actual numbers. Well, May's just came out, and so we'll have, before you get July 15th, we'll add May's actual numbers to it, and that'll adjust the run rates and everything. The next page, let's skip that. That's let's skip that. Let's go to the special revenue fund expense by type. And this again is all your special revenue funds. Again, I'll pick the same ones, the boating fees, your E911 fees, but also all of your grants, HUD, SHIP, all of them and this looks at all of them combined from an operational standpoint of how much are we spending on salaries, FICA, retirement, operating and such. And you'll notice down here, of course, that there is operating equipment and capital equipment in the bottom down there, plus some debt service payments. And so, as we said before, it's about a $5 million drop right now. And depending on whether or not between now and September we can solidify some other grant numbers, we'll add those to it, and that number may be less. But we'll also be able to go through every one of these special revenue funds if time permits. The next, skip the next page and then go to the next one is your capital projects funds. Capital projects funds are primarily impact fees, which we're not getting any revenues on those, but we are trying to spend some of the dollars we do have down.
Right.
1 cent sales tax, which we've already gone over, SCOP and scrap, and then there's a few grants, a few other grants, I should say. And so right now we have about $2 million less for next year than we do in the current year. This is mainly all equipment, capital-related items, hence the capital project.
It also has our debt service. If you notice, our debt service declines over the next 5 years.
They're only looking at the 2-year, but yep. Next tab, skip it, or next page, skip it, and then look at the enterprise expenses by type. I'm confused now on page numbers, but I think this is page 19?
17.
17? Okay, we're back to...
That's 18. No, it doesn't.
Page 17? All right.
That's Brittany's fault.
I can stop adding 2 numbers now. Mine's 17 as well.
Yeah, she's Brittany.
I said that if you called me that, I was coming over there.
This is, we've gone through these funds as well. This is your sewer, river sink water, and solid waste. And so this is just a summary again of those funds. Next page is a summary of your constitutional officers, which I think we've already hit the high points on that. We'll get to the fine and forfeiture fund here, but for the most part, let's see, did you cover the increases on?
Might want to just walk down through them.
All right, the first one is the clerk finance department. We're holding steady. We're going to try to absorb the increased FRS and health costs. Same with the our one-person maintenance department taking care of the courthouse. The next one is the property appraiser, where the budget is going from $945 in the current year to $964. And
You didn't put anything on the revenue side, apparently, right?
well, no, because it's all a transfer from the general fund. So now the tax collector brings in some fees, and I think I showed those, and the sheriff brings in some fees as well, and we've showed those, but we didn't show transfers in on this slide. No. So the property appraisers went up, I think it's $19,000, something like that. Supervisor of election went up from $339 to $354.
And both of those are FRS related.
Right.
The tax collector, does have some fees. I think it's about $1,600. So that means that she's cut the budget and absorbed any of the increased costs as well. And we'll further tweak the revenue estimates here for her tax collector fees as time goes by in the current year. We've put in a little bit increase on the what was that, the advertising fees. Yeah, it looks like the run rate is going to be high on that, so the fees, but we're estimating $250,000. Current year it's $242, so we got a little bump in expectation, and hopefully your relationship with Franklin County will meet that and more. our idea. And then you have a summary here of the sheriff, fine and forfeiture fund, just for comparison purposes of all 5 constitutionals on this page. We can, your options now, you can jump over there if you can deal with that if you want, or we can go department by department, which is next in line, is each one of your board departments. We can go through their budgets.
Or do you want to go ahead and hit fine and forfeiture, and we'll say you
Get it
understand?
over with.
Yeah.
We can go whatever direction you want.
Fine and forfeiture.
Right. What page is that?
52, 53. Page 53. Walk through how we do that here.
Yeah. Last year, when we set the fine and forfeiture fund up, the idea was the fund to be funded through ad valorem taxes as a portion of the ad valorem taxes, and also through its ICE or jail bed revenues. We set an allocation of 87.14% of the ad valorem rate will go to the sheriff's fine and forfeiture fund, and we get the remainder. This year, with the drop in the ad valorem, they suffered the larger portion of that. Of the $314,000 or $312,000 decrease. But also understand that in our funding, we had funded the $250,000 in a contingency that we had talked about. So what we did was said, we talked to the sheriff and said, we're going to back out the $250,000 contingency, but what we'll do is we'll bring you back to, we'll add $22,316 out of our ad valorem and put it into the sheriff's ad valorem, bringing them to $220,856. That's how we got to that number. That number would be lower by $22,000 if we had not done that. Let me get over here. All right, now, the jail bed revenue. The jail bed revenue is, currently, the Sheriff's Department has, hopefully successfully, we'll soon find out, Mary Dean may be able to speak to this better, but they've been negotiating with the federal government, ICE, to come up with a contract for ICE inmates so that it can level our revenue out. So that, one month we've got, it's a guarantee of 90 inmates, which stabilizes our revenue. It doesn't stabilize it where we'd like it to be, but yet it stabilizes revenue. But also the upside of that is, I think anything over, it was 120, Mary Dean, or 115, 120, 125? 115
Full rate.
goes back to the full rate. So they negotiated a very good contract to where between 90 and 115, we get paid 20-something dollars per inmate, when normally we get paid 75.
What's guaranteed, 90?
90.
What dollar amount is 90?
That's $2.4 million roughly.
But we budgeted 2.5.
That's right.
Well, you also have the U.S. Marshals.
We also got U.S. Marshals in there.
Built in there a little bit.
So the good news here is, and the reason they did that is a good idea, because they were trying to set it up to where we felt like that the government was going to come in and say, yeah, we'll give you 90, but then all of a sudden they just wanted to give us $20 per inmate thereon, and they were going to stack the jail full, realizing they were getting a deal. So they negotiated it. Once you hit that other mark at 115, the rate goes back up to our 75. So the good news is Mary Dean did not budget for a bump. So every inmate that we get over, if they all of a sudden load us up at 150, all that money goes back down to the bottom line.
It goes to their reserve.
To their reserve. That's right.
Hopefully, over the next 3 years, that could happen and pay for that position.
that would.
Cross our fingers.
That would be nice, but for budgeting, for conservative budgeting purposes, they budgeted at the 2.550.
Because it was 3.3 million in 10-11.
That's right, that's right. But if you noticed, we had 3.3 in 10-11, we had hit, and a little bit last year it went to 2.2,
Right.
and this year we're on a run rate of 2.3.
We had a real lag after the sequester, I think.
Right.
That killed us.
That's right.
Right there.
53.
So, going down through there, the other revenue is fees remitted to the sheriff, and they can explain that to you, that's 37,000, but the deficit that has to be made up that we've showing right now, pulling out of their reserve, is $300,000. They pull out of the reserve to operate
This year,
this year.
Could you give me that number
That-
again?
300,000.
300,000.
It's on page 53, Howard.
That right now is not sustainable.
Yeah, and as you'll see, if you kind of just go down to the bottom, with a regular increase in ad valorem, if we get that, and an increase in expenses of about, let's see, what is that factor we factored there? 1% in 2014-15, and then 1% in expenses. We estimated a 1% increase in expenses each year. You will see that the fund will run dry at the beginning of 16-17. So that's our current projection. Now, if next year, if
We
the
have to take the 300,000 out.
yeah.
And it goes dry.
You take the 300,000 out and it goes dry sooner than that. But needless to say, we've got about a year, next year and the following year, we'll need to make a decision, as to what to do. This is the only fund that we have that right now that is that operational wise, that we're having to fund reserves out of, and that's due primarily, the ICE inmate revenue is not there like it used to be.
That was the only upside I could see, is that if they get more than 90, this may work itself out, but 90 is what we have to budget
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and that's, like I say, it doesn't fix the problem of we're still gonna have the problem of depending upon the housing of prisoners to fund our stuff, but the problem is, in this economy, we can't fix it with a declining tax base or declining tax revenues, so, you kinda gotta hold serve where we're at and then look at other avenues as to what you can do, so, this is the big one that we projected out, and like today it looks good, but once you run it out 5 years like we do with everything, this is where the problem gets. This is a problem child.
And the answer is either raise revenue or cut expenses.
We'll have to give them a bigger revenue share, or cut expenses, or a combination of the two,
But if
or,
ad valorem comes back up, that may help as well, right?
well, ad valorem comes up, that helps as well.
Budgeted in this forecast for it to come up, though, didn't you?
We budgeted this forecast to come up by 1% next year, but, in talking to Donnie, and 2% the following, and talking to Donnie, that may not happen this coming up year as well, so, we may have over projected there, but it's not going, I don't know, we'll have to see how that comes in.
But for this, hey David, but for this year, what we got this year will get us by this year, but you have said by next year, we're gonna, and you're absolutely
Next year will be, if property values continue to fall next year, and we don't get any more ICE inmates, we gotta do something.
This is exactly what happened to the board's budget 2 or 3
Yeah.
years ago. It's just, we'll just spend it out of reserve, we'll just spend it out of reserve, we'll just spend it out of reserve, and all of a sudden, you have $200,000 in your reserve, and we're in a major crisis, so. I think we need to resolve it sooner rather than later.
I agree with you.
Yes.
This is a tough one. Like I say, this year if we get, if they have a banner year in ICE inmates, it'll put that off for another 2 years, and then the economy may recover. But if they don't just hit that, you see, if we stay at the 90 inmates, we're we're upside down in 2 years from now.
So it's staying at the 90 inmates, is that what you're saying, is the $300,000 is having to flow?
That's right. We got a fund for them to meet their budget. We've got out of their cash forward, they're gonna have to pull $300,000 out of their cash forward.
Out of their
Out of their
reserve.
reserve, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dr. Kessler.
I got you.
And that would leave them with how much reserve at the end of the year?
That would leave them,
32.
yeah, yeah.
300. No, yeah.
Hold on, Greg's doing his mumbo jumbo.
What's confusing is Excel doesn't realize that $300,000 is cash forward, and so you have to actually delete the $300,000 from cash forward to get a true picture of your net income. And so when you delete that, we're anticipating that it will end up with $600,000. Hold on.
Whoa, Brandy, whoa.
$432,000. Randy, can you delete that? Just delete the $300,000. All right, and you see the impact now to fund balance or net income, and fund balance goes from 732 to 432. And so next year it would go from 432 on the same concept, same rates to 101. And so now that puts you in 15, 16 going negative.
Mary Dean, any thoughts? I did, long term, I want to work with Halsey and try to get the legislature to make it where we can put a referendum for the voters to decide if they want to pay a flat fee for law enforcement. But that's not something to think about. That would be my preference. But,
An MSTU?
yeah, voter approved, of course, not,
Light it over to school.
no, more like what we do with the fire department. Everybody pays, every house pays a dollar amount. That would fund law enforcement.
I think
You
you,
drop the millage rate down to 3 mills, 2 mills.
I think you can only do it with an MSTU.
Well, it takes a change. It take a change to the legislature.
Yeah, we take the legislative change,
Halsey about it.
change that.
You seem to
To do the
understand.
To make it an MSDU, not
Right,
an
yes,
MSTU.
we could do the MSTU now.
Right.
But that's just a millage rate. That doesn't really get
That's
us
right.
anywhere.
That kind of gets you back to where you were.
Now,
That's why this is not a reoccurring problem, hopefully, once the program is set, we've had the contract approved, the contracting officer that I is waiting for to get approved with the finance department.
If they go to 100.
Why can't you get them to commit to 120, Mary Dean, and we wouldn't have any problem?
at $25, goes to 2.76. So, I mean, we do have the worst case.
Well, I mean, if you end up with 110 prisoners on average, then you're not gonna come out in the negative end of the year. Is that correct?
No, and the problem is now we only have about 70.
Well, but it doesn't matter, because we're gonna have a guaranteed minimum of 90.
If we have a
Yeah.
guaranteed, we have a guaranteed minimum of 9 and they
Right.
consistently adhere to it. I mean, if they maintain that, then they'll keep the contract, because we're consistently out.
And that's why, as Randy, you pointed out, this is the worst case scenario from ICE perspective. That's the bare minimum we're gonna get.
And
Now-
that keeps you in a negative, this bare minimum keeps you in a negative by how much, 3?
300.
That's about what we have to pay.
Now, let me, just for grins and giggles, let's compare to the other side. If they kept 114 in there all year, which is 24 more times $25 times every day, your 2.55 goes to 2.769. Right? Let's call that the best case scenario. And now you're only running at an $81,000 deficit, not 300. And so hopefully it falls somewhere in between there. But now if it goes over 115, then you may turn it into a positive actually, because you go back to the full rate at $75 instead of $25. There's just no way to know.
Well, do we wanna raise taxes? Do we wanna cut other departments? Do we wanna ask the sheriff's department to cut? I mean, that's the question.
We don't want to raise
That's the
taxes.
question. Right?
We don't want to raise taxes.
Isn't that the question we're asking here? Somebody answer. Yes.
Well, I mean, we're not, you don't have to make a decision now.
No, I don't really.
But the good news is You
Those are the
know,
options.
we
right?
could continue to look at it and study it this coming up year, but the problem is if it doesn't change, then it's gonna be at a critical state next year.
I think those questions are exactly where we need to look, and I think that it's a big enough question to require us to maybe get together just on that issue.
And those are the three options as I see them.
Yep.
And I don't think any of us are willing to raise the millage rate or the PST. I really don't think.
I'm gonna scratch that
would
one
be
off.
breaking all kinds of campaign
I'll
promises.
speak from the right,
Yeah.
and I'll say that you're absolutely right at this point.
Yeah, break every campaign.
Up to the right of him.
And transfer from other funds, the other funds being, that we could transfer from would be the library, would be Parks and Rec, which I don't think Jerry would go for that. We can't take road paving money and use it for the sheriff. We can't take 1 cent sales tax money. We can't take, MSBU money.
You got it.
So,
So there is a slight increase in revenue in other areas. So you dedicate that every year, and eventually we drill out of it.
now, taking Mary Dean's side here, I know, just from her perspective, I guess her point is, and I assume this is your point, we're assuming only ad valorem taxes paid for their budget. We could, on the other hand, make the assumption that, all right, we're gonna use all the PST or the utility tax to pay for the sheriff, which is a more stable revenue, or we could say we're gonna take all our disadvantaged county money and use that to pay for the sheriff. I guess we could do that
You have to
too.
use a combination of all of those. That's the reason we selected the ad valorem, is it was the one revenue that was large enough to do that.
From her side, though,
From her side, yes, and what she's saying is you
Instead of
could give her a
saying
piece of all that, but that means you
Instead of
gotta go
saying-
back in here, and that means we gotta cut,
All right,
we gotta
Yeah.
cut our pieces out
Yes,
and give them that
yes.
piece.
You can call it whatever you want. You can call it Mickey Mouse and whatever you want. The bottom line is that you have to decide how much you're gonna transfer into this fund. Right
I
now,
agree.
it's 7.2.
Actually,
You can break it up in 50 different sources, and the bottom line is I'll transfer $1 amount into this fund, and that's the big decision. It
okay,
doesn't matter what you call it.
We're building our reserve. And there's a point where we will have the money still coming in and we will have our reserve met.
Hopefully, yes.
within 5 years.
Then basically,
5 years.
basically, some of those dollars could go that way.
Yeah, but if this fund doesn't turn around, we're back, I mean, you're in the 5 years, it's, in the hole by $321,000.
Or you could do that cost of living increase.
So that's, this is a, it's do you increase the funding to the sheriff? Do you tell the sheriff to cut? Do you do a combination of the two? If you increase their funding, that means, we gotta come back and figure out where we can cut to fund the sheriff's office. So that's kind of that's where we're at.
Are you where you're at on your side of the budget, everybody but the sheriff, that there's no, I know you guys said you cut it scary close, right?
I've cut it so scared close that I'm gonna tell y'all come August that I've cut it so close. I feel good with a $280,000 reserve, but I've cut it so close that I may end up having to come back with a budget amendment towards the end of the next fiscal year if we have a big problem.
And it was cut
If
that
we have a
close.
hiccup, if we have something that happens, then we'll have to get, but the good news is we do have the reserve, our reserves are getting healthier, and we're getting there at the end. If we're able to meet this budget that we're presenting to you guys now, we'll actually be over 2 months' worth of reserves for the first time in a long
It was
time.
cut that close because nobody wants to raise the millage rate or
That's
raise
right,
taxes.
and we had to factor,
No, not necessarily.
We had a decrease in property values.
It was cut because of expenses.
well, we cut, one is we had to, but secondly, we had to absorb a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we're absorbing,
We had
yeah,
decreased revenue too, because of the
Decrease.
5% drop in the
yeah.
values.
We had,
You had to absorb the retirement increase.
yes, we picked up the community center for $1.5 million or whatever.
Well, that's
not
that's a
operating.
capital thing.
It's about
Yeah, we-
$20,000.
But
Yeah.
it came out of our reserve
That's-
fund, did it not?
Several years
That's
ago.
different reserves, though.
Different one.
That's not general fund reserves.
So we're you know, like I say, this is all the other funds are, that we have in the county general fund. All the other funds are growing. They're getting healthy. The sewer fund, we're hoping that, we got an answer from, Tallahassee yesterday on a proposed rate. Not sure that's gonna work. I'm gonna bring that before you guys in 2 weeks, to make a decision on that, but I gotta run more numbers. I started running those numbers last night. And proposed rate for bulk sale to Tallahassee, our wastewater, but we're also pursuing the USDA. If we get the USDA grant, we will turn our sewer around, and it'll be able to make it by all our projections based on the grant that we'll get. So we feel fairly confident with our sewer. We've also got an I&I problem that we've got to fix, that Cleve and Brent has sworn down they're gonna take care of it by the end of the month. So,
Mary Dean, what would be, in your opinion, what would be cut if y'all had to cut $300,000? Are y'all working on that? Or waiting for an answer? Huh? Well, if you have a contract and we have a guaranteed 90, and you use that number for your revenue side, are y'all gonna, well, I guess you're gonna have to be able to balance it out, I assume. Y'all would be able to do that, correct? Yes.
Currently, David has asked us to stay at level.
For how long?
this year, this coming up
This year? And deal with it next year?
Well, the problem is, you're right, because what they had requested was considerably higher than that. So therefore, everybody else had to kind of come in at par, and we transferred it over to get them back to par, minus the 250 in reserve.
Is it your recommendation that we go forward with this budget, or deal with it now, or you kind of committed to them to fund them?
Yeah, I think, number one is we don't know if we have a contract with the ICE yet. So, we'll know in 2 weeks. So, if we have a contract with ICE, and what my recommendation would probably, that's probably with a capital PB right now, would be to, let's run it, and let's watch it, and let's see how they bring inmates to us, and see if we can pick up a pattern, because you hate to panic now, and all of a sudden they flood us with inmates, and keep us above that. So I would, kind of wait and see, and we'll know halfway or 3/4 of the way through next year what we do, and then we can take care of it. But if they come back and deny the contract, then my recommendation will probably be to reduce this budget down, and then we got some serious discussions we have to do.
So if they get the contract, and we'll know that in 2 weeks, Mary Dean, for 90? Any thoughts on that?
Still have 432,000 in reserves, correct? And that's after taking 300,000 out.
That's right.
Let it run a year?
That's right, so you
I
could
think we
run
need to let
another
it run a
year.
year myself.
You could
And
run
then-
another year.
If we let it run a year, we'll be able to see what the outcome is, not only after they get the 90, but we will have several months to see the consistency of the
Well,
numbers.
yeah, and it gives you, as of right now, if we use the $300,000 this coming up year, in 14-15, you'll have $401,000 that we'll have left in reserve. The next year, we'll use 300 of that, and then we'll have 114. So at the end of 2015-16, that FY fiscal year, the next year.
Gotta do something.
What do y'all think?
Unless ad valorem.
That's right, exactly, yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't fully like that plan either, but there are too many unanswered questions at this point in time for us to make any kind of real decision on it. And I think that once these things come in, if they come in timely enough, I think we really should get together again
I
What
agree
if
with
the
you.
ICE contract comes through in 2 weeks and they're guaranteed this revenue?
Well, then they're losing 100 grand a year.
No, 300 grand a
They're
year.
still, with the ICE contract, they're still losing 300.
Yes, if it's
Yeah.
guaranteed to 90.
90.
But if you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
get the ICE contract, there's no guarantee, and that's all bets off.
So if they do get the 90,
It's still 300.
so, well, if we let it run a year, I think you've kind of committed to the sheriff to do that.
Well, no, I ain't committed. I think that would be my recommendation right now, especially if we get the two, because there's no sense in, that we'll do a mid-year review, and, because there's no sense in panicking at this point in time, because we got 2 years' worth of reserves. Now, do we need to have discussions about how we're gonna handle it? Yes. But at the end of the day, if we get that 90 prisoner contract, you know, that stabilizes us for 3 years, really, including next year. That stabilizes us for 3 years. But I would say, I wouldn't go past, if all of a sudden next year we find out the run rate's sitting at the 2.5 million, then I would say the next year, we got to do something, because you can't, you know, we gotta start doing something then.
I think the
Sure.
message maybe to the sheriff's department, Mary Dean, would be, I don't think we're going to raise the millage rate or raise the taxes, right?
And we're not raising the millage rate or the
Spend our reserve
or the
down.
public service.
And deficit spending, and we're not willing to sacrifice the other departments, or not you know what I mean? Like from the rec department to the library.
My recommendation was any increase in revenue, they were to decrease all the lines of the
Well, and to that, I think that, you know, we have things that we'd like to do that we're not doing right now. We have raises that we'd like to possibly.
Travel
put in.
budget is zero.
Our travel budget is zero, our employees still
Not
haven't
going
gotten
anywhere.
a raise. And I think while we're looking and while we've cut, and I know the sheriff has gone through their budget and done their things, they have to continually work on it, just like our staff is working on it.
But if we let this run a year for this year, then we, for the most part, have a balanced budget without having to raise any millage rate or taxes. Correct?
Oh, we're presenting you
If
a
we let this
balanced,
run a
a
year.
balanced budget with a
More of a
$281,000 reserve.
But at least by next year, we need, by next year, we're gonna have to make a real decision about where to go with that. But
That's
for
right.
the
If
purpose
that
of this
run
year, we
rate
have balance.
does not get up,
I think Mary Dean has enough direction from politicians to go back to the sheriff, and surely, if you know it's coming, you at least have a year to prepare to say, look, here's what we gotta do.
I'm in favor of letting it run a year.
I just wanted to add one comment,
Yes.
a caveat, an asterisk to when you say that, it's currently a balanced budget.
Right,
There are still
right.
things that have not dropped yet.
Right.
You don't know the work comp rate, workers' compensation, whether that's gonna go up. Debbie thinks it's gonna go up a little bit.
Health.
The health insurance, we've estimated 5. If it's 10, blows us out of the water. So there's several things that are still fluid in this, that
That goes back to what you
Right
said,
now, we
there's
have a
some
balanced
unknowns out there still.
and also for the fiscal year 14, which is gonna hit not only the government, but private business, is the Affordable Health Care Act. Currently, the intelligence that we're gathering, we're gonna be okay, other than any of our part-time and OPS folks that we don't provide insurance to now. We will have to offer that insurance to them. And also, there's minimums that we have, it can't be, you've got to, let's see, the health insurance that an employee pays, their portion of it can't be more than 9% of their salary. So therefore, it'll affect probably some of our lower employees, so we'll have to work on that. So that, we're keeping an eye on the health care, because that's that's another big ticker that's gonna hit, not just government, that's gonna hit business, probably business worse than it is government.
What increase would you assume on the state revenue?
State revenues,
2%.
2%.
And that may come in, is it possible that may come in higher?
Yes, sir. And there's a good possibility it will, because state revenues are going up, and they projected higher revenues this year. Normally, we get, whatever they projected, we get that
Let's say
same
it goes
percentage.
up. Let's say everything stays what you assume, but the state revenue goes up. Would that just be more reserve, or would that offset the
It's all according to the amount. If it goes up a little bit more than what we did, I would suggest putting it in reserve. But if it goes up substantially where you've got a $300,000, then I'd say, okay, now, commission, that's right, here's the pay raises.
Or it could be used to set off the deficit in the sheriff's department.
Or you split it, or whatever. That would be, I'd come to you guys and say, here's what we can do. We've got employees that haven't had raises since 2009, and they've actually had reductions in their salary, so we need to take care of our employees.
But you mentioned a couple of selective pay raises.
Right.
Is there any departments that are getting pay raises across the whole department?
Not whole departments, just selected employees that were below a certain threshold.
That's
And we're trying to bring them up to a living wage, what they call the living wage now.
That's not a cost of living increase, it's actual raise.
That's right, actual raise, that's right.
If you're making $7 an hour, you'll make.
There's not many, we can go over that with you, there's not many.
Are we done?
Very good.
We were so well attended, thanks everybody for coming to the budget.
Thank you very much.
All the people here for the budget.